Hello again. Welcome back for episode 2 of What Number Surprised You, a show about polling and opinion research. I'm Brenden Sommerhalder with MQO Research. We have a fun and festive one for you today as we head into the holiday. We ran a lighthearted poll among 550 Canadians around holiday preferences and practices, including some contentious ones like when and for how long it's okay to keep up holiday decorations, and whether Die Hard and Gremlins are holiday movies. In this episode, I'm joined by my colleagues, Kasey, Connely, and Richard Foote. We had fun with this one, and I hope you do too. Happy holidays, and see you in 2025. Well, welcome here, Kasey and Richard. Why not do just a little round the horn and say who we are?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm Kasey Connely, Senior Research Director at MQO. Hello.
Hi.
Do I say anything else?
I mean, that'll do.
Okay.
Hi, Brenden and Kasey. I'm Richard Foote. I'm a Research Director at MQO.
I'm Brenden Sommerhalder, a Vice President at MQO. So, I mean, we could have done any number of things as episode number 2. We had grand ideas of trying to get a bunch of different voices and asking a bunch of questions from people across different regional offices, but it is mid-December, and the holidays are before us, so we have this pretty cool opportunity to do a little podcast about a fun little holiday poll that we ran. And this was a brainchild of Kasey, actually. How did this come about? Tell us the story.
About how I thought about doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first we have to see if I'll remember it all because my mom brain is very empty. I think it was after the polling that we had done for the Nova Scotia provincial election, and we'd had sort of some of those positive feedback about the accuracy level, and I thought it would just be kind of fun to play on that sort of success, and as we're getting closer to the holidays, maybe do some polling related to that. So I think I called you while you were driving with your partner. And I was like, I have an idea. And then I pitched it to you and you said yes, because you're fun. And then we did it.
Let the record show.
When your boss is fun, that's not bad, right?
That's true.
Richard, when did you hear about this little initiative for the first time?
The podcast itself? I guess I heard about the podcast after you released our first one, Brenden. I almost fell off my chair listening to it because you said in a quasi-live recording that you were on your way to vote, but you were also going to pick up a case of beer from the liquor store and then go home to watch the election returns. And I thought, well, if he's going to mention that in a podcast for a commercial company, then I'm definitely working for the right place. Yeah,
that was a pretty fun little thing to do. Do we like the name? Do we think the name? What number surprised you? That came from just some ideas, Richard. You and I were batting back and forth, I think, in the summertime. So we started as a work in progress. Are you still liking it?
I like the name. I mean, we are going to be a podcast about results from surveys and public opinion polling. So, let's talk about numbers. I think it sums it up quite well.
Kasey, okay?
I think it's good. I especially like some of the staff responded to it in a positive way. Like, I'm always a little hesitant to have an opinion about a name because I think names are very, very sort of subjective, and sometimes they can just build their own meaning even if you don't actually like it when you first hear it, which I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm just saying I tend to reserve judgment on the name of something. But some of our staff had reached out and sort of said that they specifically liked the name, and so that was kind of a good thing. Made me excited.
It reminds me how hard it is to do name testing for brands.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Basically, unless there's a major red flag, you can probably make a name work, I think.
A rose by another name. I think that was Joe Rogan who coined that, I believe. Yeah, real man of our time.
Well, we have a lot to aspire to.
If only. Well, so this poll was a poll among Canadians. We reached 550 folks across the country. This was done online, and we really wanted it to just be a really fun thing. People take surveys and there's sometimes some pretty heavy hitting issues, but this time around we made them some pretty soft hitting issues all around the holidays. Let's start with Kasey in true kind of fashion for the namesake of this particular podcast. Is there a number that surprised you?
Well, there was a few numbers that surprised me, but when we were reviewing these like at a top line level, there was a couple that had stuck out to me, and one of them I'm going to talk about is probably a little controversial, especially because I'm sitting with two people who would probably fall maybe into this bucket. But when we were asking folks like who the most challenging person was to buy gifts for, everyone, or like the highest proportion of people, said their significant other. But when you look a little bit deeper at that, those who identified as male tended to have sort of a higher rating. There was 37% of male respondents said it was their significant other who was the hardest shop for, versus 22% of female respondents.
Was it still first place among females, or did they have somebody else who was hard for them to buy for?
No, it's still first place among both of them. The gap to the next place is relatively large. Like the next one would be a parent for both groups, but I still think it's kind of interesting that in general, it was a little bit harder, it seems, among that group.
That's a real deal gender difference, 37 versus 22.
Yeah.
That's a real one.
It was also one of those numbers that sometimes what's fun about polls is that you kind of get to test like what conventional wisdom is versus what the reality is. And this is one of those numbers where you might have like a gut feeling that that's the case, but like you would never necessarily want to believe it. And then you see the number to support it, and it's kind of makes it like a little bit hilarious.
That was hilarious.
How do you guys feel about the number? Would you agree with it? Do you think it's like harder for you to shop for your partner than them to shop for you?
I would say the stakes are just so much higher. I mean, my lovely partner, she's amazing all year round, and I have approximately one time per year to shine. So if I got that wrong, I'm kind of in the doghouse for a whole entire year. So I think the stakes being higher, for me personally, makes it more challenging. Richard, help me out.
Well, I'm shocked that the significant other across both genders was the top of the categories, the most difficult to buy for, because I thought the answer to this problem was simply you don't really worry about what your significant other wants. You worry about what you want, and you buy something that you like, and then you make your significant other think they're getting a nice gift because you get to share it all year long, right? It's in your home. So it's really, you're buying for yourself. I don't even know why this is an issue, frankly.
I wonder if that's a layer on top of it. Maybe they just see right through us.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm going to push back on the whole gender thing that you raised, though, Kasey, because I'll also note that the survey shows that people consider their mothers more difficult to buy for than their fathers by a few points. 8% say their fathers are the most difficult to buy for. 12% say their mothers are the most difficult to buy for. So why is that? Why are moms harder to buy for than dads?
Well, I'm not sure. That does surprise me, though, because my dad is definitely way harder to buy for than my mom.
Richard, was there a number that surprised you particularly?
I am going to go with the question that asks, will you give gifts to friends or family during the holidays this year? Now, 84% said yes. That's not the number that surprised me. The number that surprised me is the next number down. 11% said maybe. What is with those folks? They don't know what their plans are? I mean, this poll wasn't that long ago. We're in the Christmas season. We've been inundated with Black Friday weeks and on shopping pressure ever since the end of Halloween. And if you couple that with the 5% that said no, we've got 16% of Canadians either aren't buying Christmas gifts or don't even know if they're buying Christmas gifts this year. I didn't know we were such an, I'll say a materialistic country. I thought Christmas was all about buying gifts and spending money. So what are the reasons for this? And notably, it's even higher in Quebec. 22% of Quebecers don't know or aren't sure if they're buying Christmas gifts this year. What is that saying about us? Is it an affordability issue? Is it a lack of planning? Or are Canadians just really bad at thinking about Christmas? Maybe people are waiting to see if they receive a gift. Like, Canadians are so polite that we don't want to make it awkward by giving a gift to somebody if they're not going to have a gift for us. So we all just wait to see who's going to go first. I don't know what behind that was.
I love the idea that we could possibly be too polite to give a gift.
Yeah, right.
It's like, I don't want to inadvertently put somebody else in the position of not having given a gift if they got one in the first place. That's like 9-dimensional politeness chess that could only exist in Canada.
And I just want both of you to know, since we're on that subject, I do not have gifts for you. So
Thank goodness.
There
Thank
you go.
goodness indeed. Yeah.
Get that out there and clear the air.
It's like prisoner's dilemma of gift giving.
Exactly.
I'm going to give my surprise number, and this is more like a surprise and delight. So, Kasey, when I got the survey draft from you and I saw the question there, which emoji most represents how you're feeling about the holidays? And we had happiness and excitement and ready to party, but we also had sort of sad and frustrated and I think nervous and some of those more negatively valenced questions. I saw that question and I was honestly a little bit worried about what we were going to find there. I sort of just felt like maybe there's more nervousness, anxiety, or some of those negative feelings that might come to mind to people, but that just wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. Really overwhelmingly, it was otherwise. 46%, by the largest plurality of folks, chose happy. Straight up. What emoji best describes your feeling about the holidays? 46% happy. The next, 26% excited. The next, 9% neutral. You get to fourth on the list, and it's 8% are feeling overwhelmed, followed closely by 7% ready to party. So honestly, that was a pretty happy result to me. Yeah. What did you guys, were you expecting that pattern of results to that question?
No, I also was expecting a little bit more, like, especially overwhelm. I thought that would be a little bit higher, just given all the kind of conversation right now around affordability and that kind of stuff. I definitely thought we'd see a little bit more of that, but it was a really positive news story. I mean, it's basically 80% of folks who are, feeling positive about the upcoming holidays, which is really great. So yeah, it was nice to see. And I think shout out too to one of our other directors, Allison, who actually recommended adding this question when she sent it over as an addition. I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. It's gonna be so fun to see how people kind of resonate with this question, which they did, obviously. So
yeah, I was really surprised that there were more than 8% saying they were overwhelmed, because we hear a lot in the media about how overwhelming life is generally, especially around Christmas time and the pressures of Christmas. And clearly, Canadians aren't feeling that way. Also, a lot of people, we hear that there are, significant segments of society that actually feel sad around this time of year. They get the Christmas blues, and we've only got, 2% sad, 2% anxious?
This one was a single select question, so we asked people which one best represents your feelings. I think there might be a bit of, people are multidimensional. You can kind of have more than one thing going on at a time. I bet you folks who are excited and happy probably have 2 to 6% anxious and overwhelmed in there. So this might be more, if you look at this pattern of results, maybe you almost take your sort of prototypical Canadian, and this is the mix that they're feeling around the holidays. Is, a lot of happiness, a lot of excitement, but, there might be an undertone of some of those nagging other feelings too. So that's... I
think that's probably true.
Could be. Who is most ready to party, Kasey?
Those most ready to party were from Quebec.
From Quebec.
13% versus the overall 7%.
So like a little less sure about giving gifts, but certainly more sure about being ready to party.
It's true.
I know where I want to spend Christmas next year.
Hold your gift giving.
Yeah, right.
Was there a segment of people that either of you found, interesting or like they stood out across some of these results?
Well, I'm interested in one segment of people for one of the questions, which is, we asked, what is your favorite holiday tradition? And 30% overall said holiday meals, 16% said giving gifts. But down the list, attending religious or spiritual services, which is what Christmas originally is all meant to be about. Overall, only 4% said that was their favorite holiday tradition, which I think is very revealing about, we all know Christmas has become a secular holiday, but that kind of like puts a real exclamation point on that. And it's much lower than I thought it would be in terms of the percentage. But what's even more interesting is Gen Z, 18 to 27-year-olds, 0% said attending a religious service. And again, not super surprising for that generation, but I think the fact that it's at 0 really drives home the point for me that we've become really a secular society, and many of the pillars of our culture and our institutions that were built on religious or Christian ideas, it's really, really either gone or rapidly dying, especially with the upcoming generation.
This maybe a little bit kind of on the methodology related to what you were just talking about, Richard. So we did this poll among Canadians who do something related to some kind of stuff around the holiday, not necessarily Christmas. Over 95% of Canadians were screened in to this survey because they do some kind of activities around the holidays. And even around wording that question, I remembered changing it a little bit from do you celebrate any of the following holidays, just kind of straight up. So Christmas, Hanukkah, and a list of other ones, to something more along the lines of do you participate in activities around these things? Because if I were to think about my own life, I participate in Christmas-related stuff. We do gifts. I do Christmas trees. Would I say that I celebrate Christmas? I don't know that I would say yes specifically to that. I do Christmas stuff. I don't know if I celebrate Christmas. So I thought that framing it that way would be more in line with how people probably do interact with these holidays. And I think what you're talking about, Richard, there about, religious ceremonies and participating in those types of things being very low down the list or even non-existent, more or less for some of the segments, kind of speaks to that.
The only caution, I guess, with that interpretation is like the question was, what is your favorite holiday tradition? So I think I wouldn't want to like extrapolate too much into that indicating participation in religious events, because it's more like how much do you enjoy that? And I feel like even folks who are quite religious might say they don't necessarily like enjoy every service they go to.
No,
it's
I agree.
Their most favorite component. So I do think there's probably like a little bit of both.
Sure, right. There might be more prevalence than what we're seeing. And
Does that mean that all the people sitting in church on Christmas Eve would rather be at home and waiting to go watch a holiday movie, which 13% say is their favorite activity? Or
I would say there's a duty boundedness to some of that going on for sure.
I will say, though, as a side note, I don't know if either of you noticed, but when we were at lunch, there was like a table near us it looked like there must have been a work party or something like that. And I thought it was kind of like kismet-like. The people that were sitting near us, they were talking about their holiday traditions. They were talking about going to brunch, and they were all kind of sharing what they were going to do. So I thought it was quite hilarious that we were at that moment sort of sitting reviewing these results while people were actually talking about the same thing.
I love that. On that question of which holidays do you participate in, we had an other write-in, and I saw a few times a response that I was not familiar with. Kasey, you and I talked about this earlier, so I'm going to put it to Richard again. Have you heard of, or do you know what is Old Christmas Day?
I've never heard of that.
Kasey.
My mom, who is a Newfoundlander, she always leaves the Christmas decorations up until Old Christmas Day. And I think it's like the 6th of January or something. But those like 12 days of Christmas or whatever, that's all connected to like what Old Christmas Day is. I think it like starts on Christmas Eve and then it like ends 12 days after that or something to that effect. I don't know all the details. I just know that's when my mom's Christmas decorations come down.
Oh, it's another one of those beloved Newfoundland things. So, of course, MQO spans all of Atlantic Canada, and many of our colleagues are Newfoundlanders. And so I was delighted to see this Old Christmas Day in the open ends, look it up, and learn that, it's a Newfoundland thing, and it's January 6th. How do you like that?
Love it.
No, that's the first time I've ever heard of that. It's interesting. Yeah.
So this next set of questions, maybe this will be one that settles some bets across the land, I wonder. And these are the ones, Richard, again, I've kept secret from you because I really want to see what you think about these things. And it's about movies and whether they are holiday movies. First of all, I want to ask you, Richard, have you seen each of the following, yes or no? The Nightmare Before Christmas.
No.
Edward Scissorhands.
Nope.
Gremlins.
Yes.
Die Hard.
Yes.
Mean Girls.
Nope.
Okay. So let's go with the two that you have seen. And the question is, do you consider these movies to be holiday movies? And now we're going to say among the people who have an opinion on that. So they've seen it and they have an opinion. What percentage of Canadians considers Gremlins to be a holiday movie, do you think?
So I'm not allowed to look at my cheat sheet here?
You don't even have it. I'm holding the results. Okay. I kept those embargoed from you.
So Are you asking me about both those movies? Or
I'm going
just...
to go with Gremlins first. I'm going to go with Die Hard because we have a little bit more data to go on with that, which we'll give some context on.
I saw Gremlins a long time ago with one of my kids when they were little, and I recall it being a gift. He received some kind of like a creature as a Christmas gift, so I guess that qualifies it as a Christmas movie, but everything else about it I would not associate with it being a Christmas movie. I'm going to say kind of like 50-50 on Gremlins.
Okay, 50-50 Gremlins, and now you have a teeny weeny bit of other data on Die Hard. Tell us what that was, and then...
So you did an informal poll with our Halifax office. I can't remember how many people responded to it, and you were asking, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And I think it was overwhelmingly yes. I think there was one person who responded saying no. And then you had a whole pile of kind of like cheeky feedback, people saying your question was flawed, and there were a bunch of other movies that should be considered, or
and I should
whatever.
really get out of that question, asking business.
That's right. Highly unscientific poll of your work colleagues, and the consensus was yes.
It was. And what would you say? What percentage of Canadians think that Die Hard is a holiday movie?
What would my guess be? I would say most would not, because it's just not. It doesn't have the right tone. On the other hand, it's got a bit of a cult following. So let me say 30 to 40% of Canadians will say yes.
Well, I mean, you are right. It's 36% of Canadians.
I promise I didn't cheat. I couldn't have cheated on that.
You couldn't have.
Okay.
No. So you completely nailed it. Yeah, 36% of Canadians would have considered Die Hard to be a holiday movie. 33%, so this is even lower, say Gremlins.
Huh.
The highest, so The Nightmare Before Christmas, strong majority, almost 8 in 10. 79% of Canadians think The Nightmare Before Christmas is a holiday movie. But then it kind of is down from there. Edward Scissorhands, only 19%, and Mean Girls, only 11%. Kasey, what do you think?
I mean, I think there's some that isn't as surprising, like Mean Girls and Edward Scissorhands. But yeah, for Die Hard, I mean, and Gremlins, those are both movies that I watch every Christmas. So I thought they'd be a little higher. So it feels like there's some like maybe pop culture kind of trends or influences depending on which province you live in, because Quebec was most likely to say that Gremlins is a holiday movie by 9%.
Interesting.
So...
Yeah, and there's a little bit of age stuff going on here too. Gen Z, 41% think Die Hard is a holiday movie. Nearly half, 49%, think Gremlins is. Mm-hmm. So there's something interesting there. Mm-hmm. Here's another one. This one might start or settle some arguments across the land. Richard, when is it too early to put up your holiday decorations?
You're going to ask, do you want me to read the results from our poll, Brendan, or are you asking my opinion there?
I'm going to let you take that however you'd like to.
Okay, well, I think it's outrageous that what we seem to have now is not a Christmas season and not a Halloween season and not a season for Remembrance Day. But we seem to have this like endless, beginning with Halloween, we have this endless sugary festival that starts in October sometime and ends at New Year or after New Year. And I don't know what's going on with the world. People are, I mean, I'm literally putting away my Halloween decorations, and there's Santa Clauses in the shop, in the grocery store, and my neighbors are putting up lights, and I'm embarrassed, like, what, how did this happen? Are we so deprived of light at this time of year that we need to put up sparkle wherever we get the chance and for
Richard,
as long as we can?
I gotta ask you, which emoji best describes how you feel about Christmas?
I don't think they've made an emoji as grumpy enough as they... Yeah, I'll definitely be the Grinch on this one. I think Canadians are... I don't remember people putting up Christmas lights and Christmas trees like right after Halloween. I mean, retailing is one thing, but in your homes and in your neighborhoods, like, what's up with that? But anyway, I'm noticing... It's definitely getting earlier and earlier, and I'm getting grumpier and grumpier.
Yeah. Well, it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that it seems like it feels like it's been changing over time, because I think some of the data sort of suggests that the younger generations tend to want to decorate a bit earlier than some of the older generations. So maybe there is like a bit of a shift, and that they kind of tend to want to keep things up longer compared to older generations. So.
Interesting. Yeah, and I definitely feeling. I think the pressure from my own kids who are young adults to get the house decorated and to put up lights is intense. So I think you're probably right about that.
I think you're in good company. Kasey, what are the stats there? What are people saying when it comes to when is the earliest that you should put up holiday decorations?
So 16% of respondents said after Halloween is the earliest to put it up.
So those are the people that are like offending you, Richard.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't even know those people.
Yeah.
I know them as my neighbors, but that's it.
Then it's 27% after Remembrance Day, and then 50% December 1st.
Being the earliest. So half of Canadians think that as early as you should go is December 1.
Yeah. But so for after Halloween, even though it's 16% of overall, it's 24% of Gen Z and millennials who said. So
yeah, I guess I'm an old guy. That's gotta explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, so a whole quarter of the youngins think that, get it up right after Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about taking it down? What's well, we got to go back to Richard because that's too much fun. When is it too late? When is the latest you think?
I'm with the whole 12 days of Christmas thing. I mean, I thought the tradition was you put your Christmas tree up on Christmas Eve. Now, I'm not that much of a Grinch. I can give people a little bit of leeway to get organized and get their tree up a few days before Christmas. But I definitely think you should take it down after 12 days. And
12 days after Christmas?
Yeah, that's right. Because isn't that the tradition? You leave your tree up for 12 days and then that's the 12 days of Christmas.
Yeah.
I do know people who leave their trees up all winter. I guess those who have artificial trees, it's becoming easier to do that.
Do you mean like until like March?
Literally will leave their tree up all winter in their front window. I don't know, end of February maybe.
Oh, wow.
March break. But we have a bit of a problem with outdoor decorations because I will admit to leaving my outdoor decorations up until the spring thaw, simply because it's too cold to go out there and they're literally frozen to the outside of my house.
It's like a health and safety issue.
Yeah, you have to hack them out of the ice and the snow, and it's just easier to wait till the spring.
What's your kind of gut, Kasey? Like what before having seen the results, when is it just time to get those things down?
I feel like I would have expected most people to say sometime early in January, but.
And what did they say?
They said, 9% said before January 1st, so before the new year. 16% said by January 2nd. 55% said sometime in January. And then 7% said February, and 5% said as long as it's before the spring.
There you go. So it sounds like pretty strong consensus that, you get January. February is getting a little long in the tooth. Unless it's a safety hazard, really try to get it out well before the spring.
Well, those 55% who say sometime in January, good luck to them. If we're having a mild winter, okay, yeah. But if we're having a regular winter, good luck to them. They're going to freeze their fingers off.
Was there anything else in these results that were sort of like really popped out to either of you guys?
What is your favorite holiday movie? Home Alone at the top of the list with 23%. The Grinch had 9%. At the very bottom of the list, Love Actually had 1%. That's pretty bad for a movie that I thought was a pretty popular holiday movie since whenever it came out in, was it the 80s or early 90s? I can't remember. And it has to be because people just can't stomach the idea of Hugh Grant dancing in 10 Downing Street, right? It's just too traumatizing to watch that. So therefore, it's at the bottom of the list.
Gen Z had like some interesting, unique viewpoint of the holidays. And we talked about some of that already with kind of wanting to put things up earlier and maybe being a little slower to take it down. But they also were... rated themselves more excited than other generations. They were the most likely to rate themselves as totally nice on a scale of naughty to nice. So 25% of the total sample said that they would rate themselves as 100% nice, whereas 35% of Gen Z said that they would do the same. Quebec was also high on that one. They were 33 or 32%. Yeah, so it just kind of seems like there's, a little bit of a certain kind of vibe, I guess, to the holidays for that group. So that was kind of interesting to see for sure. They're most likely to give gifts, 95%, versus the 84% of everyone else, which is pretty high. They were the least likely to find it hard to shop for their significant other. So
Gen Z loves Christmas.
Apparently.
Wow, it's obviously in good hands.
Yeah.
It's in good hands. Yeah. That hardest to buy for question. One little data point I found kind of interesting, kind of nice, was that hardest to buy for significant other was far and away the hardest for the oldest of our respondents.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw that.
So where 29% of all Canadians said that their significant other is the hardest to buy for, 43% of those 70 plus said their significant other is the hardest to buy for. Like, what do you get? What do you get for somebody who has it all? You've been giving gifts for 30, 40, 50 Christmases in a row. Fair enough. Something to be grateful for is, at least for the three of us, is not being there quite yet.
Oh, boy, that's going to make my Christmases even more fun as the years go by, isn't it?
But also with that oldest group, and this is, just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, what emoji best describes your feelings about the holidays? 46% of Canadians said happy. 58% of 70 plus said happy, which is the largest of any group. So the gift buying might be harder, but the happiness reigns supreme among them.
There you go. Good for them.
Well, every time you ask a question, you really get 1,000 data points, because you could look at it a bunch of different ways. And of course, we being the data research geeks that we are, take a look at our website, take a look at our socials. We're going to be giving more snippets between now and the holidays, and maybe a little sneak peek too. We asked people, will you make a New Year's resolution this year? Among the 32% who are going to be making a New Year's resolution, we asked them, what's the resolution going to be? So make sure you check in. Anything else, friends, before we wrap up on this last week before the holidays?
Oh, well, this was fun. We delve into a lot of numbers in our daily work lives, and it was fun looking at some Christmassy, some up to date Christmassy data.
And we should figure out what we're going to do next.
Thanks for listening to What Number Surprised You by MQO Research. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Get in touch if you'd like by email at podcast@mqoresearch.com. Search us up on socials or visit our website for more fun holiday stats from this poll. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't already, and share our show with anyone you think it would bring a smile to. See you in the new year.
They do decorate a bit earlier. It's like,
You guys know I just like Christmas intensely, right?
I'm also not
I
a fan
also
of
don't
Christmas.
love it very much.
That's really
That's really
funny.
going to skew our podcast.
Yeah.
Unless we fake it.
we are all the Grinches.
Jeez.
3 Grinches review holiday spirit.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Honestly,
I also don't like it.
running a poll about Christmas is about the only way to salvage it for me.